All right. Great. We're recording. Now, so today's topic is going to be on Joseph. So why don't you, so Jamin, you chose the topic of Joseph. Why don't you just say why you chose the topic, and we'll,
Yeah,
we'll get started.
yeah. So this was interesting. I think initially because you mentioned Carl, you wanted to call this the brothers Joseph. And I
Yeah.
was like, this would be very cool to actually talk about Joseph because I think if I'm not mistaken, Joseph means dreamer.
Mm, I think so. I don't know, actually.
I think it does. Um,
It, we normally associate Joseph and the dreams, right?
yeah, yeah. What it actually means apparently, I started a quick Google search, sneaky one. It said it means he will add,
Oh, okay.
he will increase.
Healing face. Okay.
It's very interesting. But yeah, so I thought this would be a very interesting one because there's quite a lot of context because what happens to Joseph, especially with his family situation and dynamics, is
Mm.
a lot of it's due to the sins of his father, right? Because
Yeah, maybe.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, so his situation, his position where he comes in, a lot
Mm.
of that he didn't choose, and he's set up as this person as the favorite child
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
because his father got cheated
Right.
before. So and then you see how he increases
Let's let's
because
let's
God
give
chooses him.
let's give some context here, right?
Yeah.
So that we know the whole story, at least a superficial version of the whole story first, right? And then
Mm, mm.
we'll go. So this is from my understanding, and if I left out anything, just feel free to fill it in, right?
Sure.
So Joseph is the son of Jacob,
Mm-hmm.
and Jacob is also known as Israel, right? So Jacob, we'll start from Jacob, because obviously Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Those are the
Mm,
forefathers. And you have, Abraham being the father of, Isaac and Ishmael. Isaac being the true son of God, according to the Christians. Ishmael being the true son of God, according to the Muslims. Christians and Jews, sorry. And Isaac has two sons, Jacob and Esau, who are twins, right? So you have a brother, a dichotomous brother relationship there, right? Or rival brother, what is it called? Rival brothers, right? Relationship there. And they're obviously very intense, right? That relationship is very intense because Jacob cheats his brother Esau out of his inheritance, right? And then Jacob essentially flees and then marries. Well, there's a few things that go on. There's he marries. He's in love with Rachel, the lady Rachel, which is actually quite an interesting story. He's in love with Rachel, but then he gets deceived by Rachel's father, right, on their wedding night, and he gives him Rachel's older sister to sleep with, which is like, how do you
mm.
not know who you're sleeping with, right? Anyway, but clearly he was drunk. Like the
Yeah.
tradition of drinking after your wedding is clearly, it goes back a long time. So
Yes.
so he marries. Sorry, he works for the father. I think the father's name is Laban. He works for Laban
Yes.
for 7 years. Then he's like, I want to marry Rachel now. I worked for you 7 years. I want Rachel. Gets married, and then he gives him Leia to sleep with, right? And then now you got to work for him
Yeah.
another 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Rachel gets Rachel finally, right? And then there's some issue with breeding and fertility. And what happens is Leia has a child first, right? But then Rachel is not having children, so Rachel gives one of her handmaids to Jacob. We'll call him Israel. It might be easier. I might put things to context to call him Israel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Rachel gives one of her handmaids to Israel, and he has children from the handmaids as well. Then Leah feels like, oh shit, Rachel's catching up with me here. I'm gonna give my handmaid to to Jacob. So
Mm.
she's sleeping with the Leah's handmaid too. And then finally, and they have children. And then finally, at long last, Rachel has two children, Joseph and Benjamin. and they are the most loved because they're from the most loved wife.
Yeah.
Right. And we have the brothers, all 12 in all, who become the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, I'll just bring up the names of each tribe here.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's an order. The oldest to the new serial. Deuteronomy. And I'm pretty sure this is the order. So first one's Reuben, then Simeon or Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Benjamin, and Joseph. The order is not quite right, but it's pretty much sort of right. No, actually it's not. Hold on. This is in the wiki. I should know this in the wiki. but basically, the most important thing to remember is that Joseph and Benjamin were the last two sons.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think does Rachel die in childbirth?
With Benjamin, she does.
Does, right? Right. That's really interesting, right? I don't like. Let's just talk about this for a second. Okay. Now there's a huge amount of parallel between what you see in Genesis. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's finish the story before we continue on this, because I want to talk about the parallels. After we finish the story. So what happens is Joseph gets a really nice coat from his father, because of this really nice coat, the multicolored dream coat, whatever. It's everyone else is quite jealous of him, and on top of it all, he starts having these dreams, saying that he sees his brothers in the form of hay, a pile of hay, bowing down to him, or bowing down to his pile of hay. And the brothers get annoyed at this. And then he has another dream about stars and the sun and the moon bowing down to him. And then the parents get annoyed at this, because the sun and the moon obviously mean the parents too. And the parents get annoyed, right? And then they tell him to shut up, and he shuts up for a while. But then an opportunity arises where the brothers are out in the field, and the father tells Joseph to go give them some food or something like that. And when Joseph gets there, I think that's when he relays another dream to them. And they're super annoyed at him. And they said, look, let's just kill him. And then Reuben, who's the older one, who was more mature, says, look, don't kill him, just throw him in a well. And, we'll teach him a lesson, right? And they do that. And little did they know, I think it was Judah. I'm not exactly sure who was the right one. I'm pretty sure it was Judah. Actually takes him out of the well and sells him to some Egyptian merchants who are passing by. And when Reuben wakes up in the morning, finds that his brother's not there, because Reuben was planned to wake up early and, to save him from the well. And it's all a big joke, haha, sorry,
Yeah.
just being boys, how boys are, and he gets sold to Egypt, to Potiphar, right? Now Potiphar is one of the generals or governors of Egypt, and he is essentially put in charge of Potiphar's household because he's such a good worker. But turns out Potiphar's wife has other plans, and Potiphar's wife really likes Joseph, and tries to sleep with him. But Joseph, being a guy of integrity, is like, nah, this is not cool. And he tries to run away, but then she screams rape, which is another interesting thing, believe all women. we can talk about, this goes back ages.
The stories keep giving wisdom to today. Well,
amen, brother. All right.
Yeah.
And then what happens after? So the guy gets put in jail, right? And for somebody screaming false rape. And but anyway, he does well in jail as well. He gets put it as the head of the prisoners, or whatever that means. And then while he's in jail, he gets this there's a couple of people with him. There's a butcher and there's a wine taster or something like that, I think, or baker. So a
Yeah.
baker and a wine taster, something like that. And there's they have these dreams, and these dreams essentially Joseph tries to interpret these dreams with the help of God. Says God is the only one who can interpret the dreams. So he tells them what these dreams mean, and the dreams come to pass. And then one of them dies. I can't remember which one. I think the wine taster survives. The wine taster survives. And the baker is the one who dies, because the wine taster is in Pharaoh's court when Pharaoh has his dream. And this is like 5 years later. And then the wine taster says, oh yeah, there was some guy in prison who answered my dream. Maybe he can answer your dream too, or interpret your dream too. And then Joseph tells him his dream, which the actual sorcerers from the court of the Pharaoh couldn't do. And Pharaoh's super impressed by this, and makes and the dream suggests that there's a famine in the land. Oh, sorry, of 7 years of prosperity, and then 7 years of famine. And then the Pharaoh puts Joseph in charge to allocate funds and things like that, so he can manage the famine properly. Then when the famine is so bad, it reaches all the way back to Israel and his family. They go to Egypt to buy grain, and they meet up with Joseph again. And then Joseph has a bit of fun with them, a bit of fun, a little bit of, similar to, again, what brothers would do, as in like conceal your identity and then come out in the big reveal sort of thing. And then he's like, yes, I'm Joseph, I forgive you. And the book ends in this, the story essentially ends in this iconic phrase, which is, what you have meant for evil, God has meant for good. And I love that line. That's a great line. And that's essentially the conclusion of the story. And everyone moves down to Egypt, and they live happily ever after, essentially, until the next book. Okay. There's there's quite a lot of subtleties that I've missed out along the way, but I'm, that's the brief synopsis of the whole story. So
that was good to hear, actually, because
right?
now it's actually, even that synopsis, it just makes you feel like, oh my goodness, if nothing else, what an amazing story.
Yep. Yeah. It's fantastic. Like, I'll be telling Ali about these stories, when she is old enough to understand them. Like my dad used to tell me stories, like, me and my brother, we'll jump in bed with us, tell a story before bed, sleep.
Yeah. So,
and like it's been shown, like it's actually been shown that fathers who read to their children actually do better. So the children do better than if mothers read to the children, which is a bit weird. I've not heard that from, I think, Jordan Peterson on his lectures.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was, I think it was that. Yeah, it was one of his lectures.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So let's start talking about this, because, like I said, there's a huge amount to talk about. Why don't you tell me what you got from this whole story, and then I'll talk about the parallels that I've seen.
Yeah. So firstly, I think the notion of the dreams, I'm trying to think of what that means, because it's quite a symbolic thing in the Bible, and it's like the parallels for me is like straight away I was like Daniel, like like another dreamer who was like, that was like fundamental to his story, was his ability to have and interpret these dreams. But also just the lineage here, like from Jacob or Israel, cheating his brother, then having to pay for it with Laban, then finally, then kind of meandering, having all these kids, finally getting the wife he wants with the child he wants. Then the child comes into this world beloved like no one else, kind of like set apart from birth, only to be thrown into a well and into despair again. So it's very interesting. Kind of the sins of the father theme kind of plays here, but then also I think that's the intention of that story, because, like you said, the ending is what you've intended for evil, God has made for good, and that's very clear throughout the entire, through even Israel's story to Joseph, which is quite amazing. So I don't know, it's quite a deep one. I feel like there's so many parallels and depths there that are just right below the surface.
Yep. No, definitely, man. So when you say the parallels with Daniel and the importance of dreams with Daniel, I can't remember the dreams of Daniel. The only dream that comes to mind was the dream that what was it? Nebuchadnezzar had that
The hand,
the statue,
the hand
the
on the
gold.
wall.
Oh, yeah,
Statue.
That's right. That's the golden statue, and the other one, the hand.
Yeah, the hand on the wall.
The writing on the wall.
But apparently, everyone saw that.
Yeah, it wasn't a dream. That wasn't a dream. That was something.
No, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh well, supposedly actually happened. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, look, the parallels that I was looking at. I wasn't looking at Daniel actually. I didn't think about Daniel at all. My parallel was actually the whole book of Genesis with the whole story of the Bible.
Right.
Okay, because here's the thing, right? There's a very big parallel between Joseph and Jesus, right? So Joseph is like a Christ-like figure, right? In Genesis. So let's say, so you look at Genesis as if it's the whole Bible and see if it extends, right? And like you have the Redeemer, who is Joseph. Joseph is the Redeemer, right? Joseph undergoes a death, right, and rebirth as this Egyptian governor. You see?
And even more the actual savior of the people that put him.
Well, that's right. He saves Israel. He literally saves his father and his family, his father's family from the famine and from he gives them a good land in Egypt and gives them a nice life in Egypt. It's this, you could I don't know whether you would call that the promised land for Joseph, right?
But it's the same archetype of the story.
That's right. The idea was always to get them into their own land, as opposed to the land of the Egyptians. But so you would think that at that time Joseph thought that the land that in Egypt was giving them, I think it was meant to be a pretty good land for farmland and things, was actually the promised land. So makes you think maybe that's why they were in Egypt for so long as well.
Man, at least for a time, that was the quote unquote land of milk and honey, because they just multiplied and did well to the point where they were a threat.
Yep, that's true. It's true. So the parallel that I saw, right, was that was the main parallel, right, between that you have the lineage up to Joseph, right, and Joseph being the Christ figure, and Joseph being the savior of Israel, and Jesus being the savior of all man, right, and as well as Israel as well. See, and that story permeates throughout the Bible essentially. So, the other thing, and obviously the betrayal as well. You can think Judah, right? Judas. Judah was one who sold Joseph, right? You have Judas who betrayed Jesus. This is another one I just thought of there.
Yeah,
interesting, right? And then 12 disciples as well. You have the 12 brothers.
Yeah.
Right. So there's like a lot of parallels like between that and the New Testament idea as well. So this is an interesting parallel. I think it's actually really interesting. The parallel is really interesting for us as well as a family, as the brothers of Joseph, right? Our cousins. That we don't have 12 cousins, or do we? How many cousins do we have in total?
It'd be interesting if we had 12. That'd be pretty funny.
So we have Uncle Bennett, right? Then it's Uncle Howard, Auntie Norma. Then it's my dad, right? Then it was your dad. Then Uncle Adriel. That's 6. That's they each had 12. 2 kids, so that's 12 already, right?
Did you count? Yeah.
Actually, you're right. If you think about it, there's 12 there, right? But then Uncle Kevin and Auntie Joanne. Yeah. They have 2 and 3. So yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just thought of that, like there is that you could think of it that way as well. We probably have a bit more than 12. But yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting point to make. But yeah, so the other point was let's have a look here. What do you think about that? What do you think about the whole dichotomy, not dichotomy, the whole parallel between the Bible and Genesis in that manner?
I think that's one of the reasons why the Bible will always be probably the greatest story ever told, because the way it lines up, and now I guess it's a different debate. We can talk about whether it literally happened that way, or if we had certain scribes doing it. To me, that doesn't really matter. What matters is the fact that the story itself resonates on so many levels. It actually supersedes the point of literal factual evidence, because it actually hits you on a deeper level than that. So the point of evidence when is null and void, because you're kind of missing the meat underneath it. The fact that the story itself connects in such a way, and then not only on the page but also onto you metaphysically.
Yes. What do you think we're possibly missing?
In the Bible or in the story?
In the story.
Missing? What do you mean? Can you explain that question a bit?
Oh, sorry, I may have misheard what you said. But do you think that there's other elements that more that we can glean from this?
Oh, glean from the story. It's very interesting, because I would say there's something about I think that changed in Joseph when his family came to him for help, and then he saw Benjamin, because he didn't meet Benjamin up until that point, right? No. Joseph was the youngest. He met Benjamin only when his brothers came to buy grain for the famine.
No,
and he said
no. He knew.
He did.
He knew because in the story itself, he asked the brothers, "Where's your younger brother?"
When they came back.
And, no. Initially, and they were surprised. They were like, "How did he know that we have another brother?"
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He knew.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
He knew.
So Benjamin was around. He's probably too young to be involved in all the.
But they would have been close.
Gotcha.
They would have been close because they obviously have the same mother.
Yeah, they were the same mom.
Okay, yeah, and he was probably very young. He was probably maybe a kid,
Yeah. That's good. I didn't. That's a good detail. Actually, I probably missed before.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning, absolute beginning, right? And we'll work our way through the whole story of Joseph, right? So let's see. Okay, sorry. I'm just gonna have a quick look and see if I can find actual story. So from what we described anyway, the dreams that he was having, that was really interesting, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that it caused jealousy within the family. So in the notes that I wrote down, right, the first point is jealousy can ruin a family relationship, right? So that was an interesting one. I was looking online and found these little points, things that you can learn from the Joseph story, and this came up, which is really interesting. I mean, like, it's such a big problem in families in general, right? Jealousy.
Yeah.
And we have plenty of experience, in our family, being a big family, that jealousy causes tension between the guys, the woman, cousins, brothers, sisters. It's quite crazy.
Yeah, that is the nature of things. You get so it is a family thing, even in close-knit families.
Yeah. I suppose, you have to ask yourself, what can we learn about jealousy from this story?
Yeah. We know fundamentally we know it exists, right? It's going to come up, I think this is where the issue with jealousy comes up, is when you think you're too good to feel jealousy, right? Because then you don't have to face your own jealousy,
Right.
but you harbor it. So you think like, so usually when it comes up, it's like, say you feel, say I'm jealous of you
Mm-hmm.
because you have something nice, like say you got an awesome guitar or something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Now, I think the tension comes if I was like, oh, yeah, I like the guitar, I feel jealous, but then I was like, oh, I can't. There's no way I can feel jealous of Kyle. No, I like Kyle. Why would I feel jealous of Kyle? But it's there. It sits
Right.
and it festers.
Yeah.
But that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah. That's a good thing that I don't have no better guitar than you. But I think it's like what people think is important, right? Like if somebody is okay, I'm gonna use a little bit of a personal example, right?
Mm.
One of our family, one of Romi's family members had lost a baby right when we were having Ali.
Mm.
And the baby was born premature at like under 30 weeks. It was like just under 30 weeks, something like that, and didn't survive. It was a complicated pregnancy and things, but anyway. And there's always that concern that there's an element of jealousy that's going to come up in that. So we were worried about anyway. Like, you don't want to say that someone will be jealous. You don't know. And she wasn't jealous at all. Like, she was actually really amazing about the whole thing. But like, I think that there is an element of jealousy in that scenario that I can't really pinpoint. I feel like it's almost the Solomon story. You know the Solomon story?
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, about the baby. And just to let's just say the story in case people want to know what we're talking about, is like, so the story in Solomon. I'm not sure which book in the Bible later on, where two women come to Solomon to settle the dispute between them. And the dispute is, my baby died and this woman stole my baby, right? Oh, sorry, her baby died and that woman stole my baby, right? And the woman says, no way, right? This is my baby. Your baby is the one who died, right? And obviously when you're in a tribe, right, it can be hard, because you have communal people, you have like nursing mothers and things like that, it's actually quite a difficult situation to be in. It's not like, oh yeah, I have, and mind you, even in a nursery, right? Like you get really worried that you're going to confuse babies. So babies look pretty similar.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when they're just born, right? It's pretty hectic. So, like for us, right? We had immediately after the baby was born, they put a name tag on her and a sticker on her back, right? To say that baby of Romanthi Madhawala, right?
Yeah.
And because we didn't have a name at that point, right? Or we didn't officially put the name in at that point. So as soon as it was born, so they just put that in. They're like, oh wow, this is really interesting. So it's like it's understandable that potentially you could actually confuse your baby for someone else's.
Yeah.
And and it's just like kudos to Solomon, who was able to figure out a way to settle this, post birth, which is like really hard thing to do. People now wouldn't be able to do that. Mind you, he settled it by threatening to cut the baby in half and share it to pieces between the two women.
But that makes me think now, why, like, so I was thinking like jealousy, like why is it such a bad thing? But and I think I just had a thought, especially in a situation where he says cut the baby in half and share the pieces. One of the women say yes, and one of the women says no.
Yes.
And he said, the woman that says no, you're the real mother, right?
That's it.
Now it makes me think about the woman who said yes. She still wouldn't get the baby if she cut it. No. Because, and this is where I think the evilness and jealousy comes. It's like, you have something that I want. I would rather that none of us have it instead of you having it.
Yes, yes, yes. That's so true, right? You can't be happy for the other
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. You just
Yeah,
can't.
that's pathological. You can't
So
be
you
happy.
actually want, it's quite, it's like, it's mutual desolation because you actually,
Yeah,
because you don't want, if you can't have it, then you definitely want to make sure the other person can't get it.
hey, dude, that's exactly right. Like, I mean, maybe I'm not sure this is the right time to bring this up, but like, look at the whole Black Lives Matter thing,
Dude,
right?
that's
You
just
you know
resentment
exactly. You
and
know there's
jealousy. Yeah.
exactly. It's jealousy, right? You know
Yeah.
there's an element of jealousy there, and
Yeah.
you can't pinpoint it. Like, who's jealous of who? Like, are black people jealous of white people? Like, yeah, like, that's goes without saying. Like, I'm jealous of white people, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, right? But I'm also jealous of black people in some ways,
Mm.
some ways. Being a man, yes.
And
Being an Indian man.
one specific way.
One specific way. Being an Indian man, I'm definitely jealous about that one specific.
Oh, jeez. like and subscribe for Carl's personal videos after this.
Right. But like, but here's the thing, right? Like, I have black friends, right? Like, we make jokes about it. I'm not like, and I might joke around saying, I wish I had, I wish I was,
Yeah.
what you got. But it's not, there's no like resentment about it. Just, I don't know, like, I don't know if did you have any black friends?
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
have a friend, a black friend from Zimbabwe.
Oh, right. Nice. Yeah.
Dude. See, this is the thing. This is the beautiful thing about culture is you can only celebrate culture because of the differences. You can't
exactly.
just watch everything and be like, yeah, hey, we're all the same. I don't see color. It's like, you should see color. You should see culture. You should see that rich depth.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be so shit scared as to not call it out. You don't have to be like, you know what I mean? Like you can point at the differences. It's fine.
But it has to be done in love, right? We don't do it.
That's
like,
the thing. It's intention.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's now it's become where it's an interesting time where it doesn't really matter about intent anymore. It matters about how you choose that intent to be.
Yeah.
Which is
or
not
basically
fair.
how the media portrays it to be, which is very big. Yeah. So the whole Black Lives Matter thing. I think I posted that thing on Facebook recently about that guy not kneeling. Says, did you see that on Facebook?
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and like only kneels to God, and that's like, yeah, I agree 100%. You should only kneel to God. And then I thought about the other guys who are kneeling, like kneeling down to the Black Lives Matter, and like the Black Lives Matter thing, right? Nobody will ever dispute. Of course, Black Lives Matter, right? But the organization that calls itself Black Lives Matter is actually a self-proclaimed terrorist organization. The leaders of the organization, actually say they are willing to do violent things in order to get there and to promote chaos. I'm like, why would you support this? Now, there's one thing to say, to do it in your heart, to say, yeah, of course, I'm gonna, make an attempt to be less racist, right? It's another thing to what's the word? Parade yourself around as a self-proclaimed egalitarian. Yeah. Anyway.
It's like you mean like self-proclaimed, like I guess you're talking about virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling. That's the word I'm looking for. Virtue signaling. Yeah. So that's just wrong. Like, that's wrong. Anyone who virtue signals is just pathetic.
It is. There's something about it. When someone's virtue signaling, you feel that cringe in you because it's like, this person's not thinking. It's just it's like a tape. They haven't thought about this narrative. It's just like a tape. They're just playing back.
That's it, man. That's it. 100%. So yeah, so jealousy, right? Jealousy is where all this stems from. Like, and how do we respond to jealousy? Yeah, like let's think about it. I don't know what can we learn about jealousy from the story, but how to approach it. Yep.
I think at the base level, it's a fundamental human thing. It's a human problem. I don't think animals can face jealousy because jealousy is like I guess the intent around that is I want you to not have. Whereas I guess for an animal would be I want it. I want to have. Like I want it, so I want to use my power to get it. Whereas for me, it's like jealousy for humans is not only do I want it, I don't want you to have it. So there's like another layer.
Have you seen that video with the 3 dogs licking the ice cream?
No.
Okay, it's like a little cute YouTube video, right? I think on Facebook or something, right? There's 3 dogs, 3 Labradors, right? And they're super cute, right? And there's this long, like, those stick ice creams, right? And the owner is sharing it between 3 dogs. So she's going to one dog, then to the middle dog, and then to the next dog, right? And they're all licking it, right? And then finally, the one dog just stops licking it, right? And then she moves on to the next. She misses him, right? Because he doesn't lick it, right? And goes back to the next one. And the second time she comes around, the dog bites it and grabs it and goes away.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So that's like a little bit of a jealousy thing, right?
It's not, it seems so.
It's obviously not well articulated, or like it's the precursor. It's the precursor to jealousy, right?
Yeah. It's I guess it would be. It's a weird thing because like that's. I guess is it a need? Is the precursor a need? Is like a fundamental need, or is it like a want?
I don't know. Well, ice cream. Dogs don't eat ice cream.
But it's such a thing that like, because here's the thing. Like I notice when in the like jealousy in myself, right? And that can be scary if you don't look at it, because if you identify yourself as someone who's above jealousy, I think that's where the problem arises.
Yes, that's true, right? Like, you have to accept the shadows in your heart, right?
And you have to look at them. They're ugly.
That's right.
We're all a bundle of snakes.
That's it, man. That's it. And then you also remember that along with the snake is like fruit that you need to pick.
Yeah.
And nurture. It's like that the wolves, right? Which you have the wolf of hatred and the good wolf and the bad wolf in your heart, and the wolf that you feed, that's the one that survives and flourishes. So. Yeah. That's it. So I like how to respond to jealousy. What's the answer to jealousy?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
It's also like, I think it's like something about jealousy that's like it's very in the world materialistic thinking. It's like very much you focus on scarcity. You don't realize that you have that you're someone who's capable and can have abundance or make abundance happen or bring in abundance. It's very like it's like almost like that mindset where it's like, oh shit, you have something, you've taken a bit of the pie that now I can't have. It's a very scarcity mode, which is very much ripe in young men now. That kind of that resentful, purposeless, aimless kind of thing. Like young men, like mid-20s, early 20s. Yeah.
I think there's a couple of reasons for that. There's a book written by a guy that Jordan Peterson interviewed, Jamal Giovanni. Do you know that? And the book's called Why Young Men. Yeah, I listened to the interview between him and JP, and it was really interesting about how important young men are to society and how they need to step up. And I don't know, I've been watching I'm a subscriber to the Daily Wire, and the most recent thing on the Daily Wire was Tomi Lahren. Do you know Tomi Lahren?
No.
Tomi Lahren is a woman who's right-wing, very right-wing, but went on a rant. All right, she's like a media person, right, or a political commentator, but she went on a rant about how men are trash. Right?
She's right-wing though? That's weird.
Yes, weird. She's right. She's right-wing. Huh. But then she talked about how men are trash and how it's because of the troubles that she has in her own relationships that men are trash. was,
Oh,
it was quite disappointing to hear that. So I actually quite like it. But I was when I heard that she said these things, I was like, this is bitterness and resentment that's coming from a
yeah,
place
yeah,
that is clearly a subjective, personal place.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe it's the subjectivity, right? It's in individuals. But what we're seeing in terms of the whole Black Lives Matter thing, right? That's not just subjective. That is like a racial thing, which
yeah.
maybe is permeating throughout throughout what do you call it? Permeating throughout history.
Mm,
That the Black people are jealous of white people because they didn't undergo the same trials and tribulations that the Black people did.
mm,
But the answer to that, like my personal opinion, right, being Indian, is the answer to that is what the Indians did in South Africa. Now, what the
yeah.
Indians did in South Africa. Now, you have a very interesting dichotomy, right? Because you have essentially half. I won't say half. It's probably, I'm not sure the proportions, but in my mind, it's half, right? Half of the Indians make something of themselves, but the other half don't. And in the ones that don't, they are the ones who have the victim mentality of the Black people in the US. They're like,
Mm,
they're owed things by the government. They need to, try to be Black enough. Now, obviously, in South Africa, you have to be Black enough to get the welfare things, right?
yeah.
But they, you have to be Black enough to actually get on those programs. And they try their best to be Black enough, and they're fighting for their rights as Black people. Whereas the other half of people says, like, screw this shit. Nobody's going to give me anything on a silver platter. I'm going to, get my medical degree and get my law degree, get my engineering degree, and, say screw you to the world and go on my fancy holidays and live in my nice house. And the rest of you can do what you want to do. And that's the mentality that we sort of grew up in. Like, we grew up in a thing that no one's going to hand you anything on a silver platter. Do it yourself. Study, get your degree, get a job or start a business or something, and do it yourself. Hard work is the only thing that's going to pull you out of this shit,
Mm,
right? And like, but that we only see that in like a small portion of people, like 50% there, like in the Indian community anyway, in South Africa.
yeah.
Yeah, what do you
Yeah,
think
it's
about
very
that?
interesting. I think that's the thing. Like, man, you can't just have rights. You have to have responsibilities.
100%, man. 100%. Yeah.
And it's funny how the people who take the most responsibility aren't the ones petitioning for rights.
Right. That's exactly true. Mm.
So yeah, it's very interesting. It's very something about it. I don't know. Like, I try not to pay with the Black Lives Matter things. Like, the media ramp stuff up because they're so amoral. They don't give a shit. All they care about is clickbait. You're not getting the truth.
100%.
So
100%.
I try not to pay. Every time I see it, I'm like, this is so juvenile. Like, I just get this feeling of like, come on, you guys are better than this, man. It's like pathetic and it's juvenile.
Yep.
And like the answer is simple. It's like, just take your attention away from this because it's not giving you anything, and put it on an ideal that you've decided on,
Yes.
not a narrative, a collective narrative that you think you have to play a part in.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly right. It's so true. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. Well, I think we'll
Yeah,
talk about jealousy quite a bit, but I think that was a good thing to talk about.
good sidebar. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was pretty good actually. Jealousy. So the next point was, so Joseph coat was stripped away, but not his character. Sometimes we think something defines us when it's something superficial, like a coat, and that's here today and gone tomorrow. And maybe the thing that should define us needs to be something more metaphysical that we can always aim upwards towards. So this is something exactly what you were just talking about, right? Having that mentality that you have to keep aiming upwards, and look at something externally, and something that
Like,
you choose.
sorry to jump in. I like this idea. It's a Jordan
Okay.
Peterson idea that just some of the stuff he says just sticks with you and it comes up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
it's this concept of like when you choose an ideal, you're choosing a judge.
Mm.
Your ideal is your judge,
Mm.
because when you miss it, it comes down on you, and you have to keep realigning and aiming. So you zigzagging, but you need that ideal because something needs to judge you to tell you when you're not measuring up.
That's it, man. That's absolutely
Yeah.
right. It's it's the concept of sin, right? The word sin means missing the mark. It's actually an archery term. So when you don't have a judge, you don't know what you're aiming at, which means you're always sinning, really, because you're never hitting anything, or you can think you're never sinning as well, right? But obviously you have no direction in that way. It's just pure chaos.
I actually love that what you just said. Like if you don't have an aim, you're always sinning. That's really useful.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Yeah.
It's a really useful thing to think about. Yeah.
There's another line that Andrew Clavin from the Daily Wire used. One of his videos, it was his testimony on why he became a Christian. Well, he's actually a Messianic Jew, so he's like a Jewish person who became a Christian, and he was saying that when it comes to God, right, it's like being when he was an atheist, sorry, it's like being in a stormy sea, right, and the waves are crashing in on you, and you don't know what's going on. You're on a boat, and your boat's small, and it's being overtaken by the waves. But being a Christian means all of that is still true, but you can see you're able to see the North Star.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And no matter what, if you just keep your eye focused on the North Star, no matter how bad things get, you know that you're just going to keep following that direction, keep moving forward, right? Things will you at some point you'll get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like that. I really like that analogy. Like no one is going to stop, the waves. Maybe if you're taking Jesus, maybe Jesus can stop the waves, but like life happens, right? Like tragedy is part of life. Shit happens. But when you actually have that North Star to aim towards, no matter how bad things get, it's okay. It'll be okay. It'll get better.
And I like that because that's a beautiful analogy. Because like when Jesus was walking the water and Peter tried to follow him, Peter sank because he stopped looking at Jesus
and looked at the waves and concentrated more on the waves. That's it.
So again, the parallels are great, man. In the Bible,
that's it.
Unreal.
That's it. Yeah, man, it's amazing. What did you think about what I said about the idea of thinking about something thinking something defines us when it's actually quite a superficial thing, like a coach, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that was a interesting thought, because we do think things define us, right? And whatever we think defines us, we have to really take a step back and say, is that really how we see ourselves, right? For example, right? I'll give you my example. Maybe you can give me your example as well. Let's say I'm a doctor, right? If I've never defined myself as being a doctor, okay? Because if something happens, let's say if I'm in a car crash or something, right, and I can't operate anymore or whatever, right? And like the Doctor Strange sort of thing, right? You lose who you are.
Yeah.
And you can't define yourself, and you do the Doctor Strange thing, and you just go crazy, But let's say he didn't define himself, right, by being a doctor. Let's say he defined himself by something else. Like something comes to mind. My friend Yashir, Yashir, right? He told me something very interesting once. He's like, do you define yourself by who you are at work, or do you define yourself by who you are when you're at home? Because and he told me this about making a decision about whether to do medicine or not, right? And he said that if you define yourself by who you are at home, it doesn't matter what job you do, because what's important to you is who you are when you're at home, right? But if you define yourself by who you are at work, then you really should do everything in your power to make sure that your home life corresponds and is in line with your work life. and your home life is able to compromise for your work life, not the other way around.
Yeah.
See, there's nothing wrong with it being defined by who you are when you're at work or who you are when you're at home. It's just that this is his argument anyway. When we're having this discussion, it's like, it really just depends on how you orient your life. You don't want, to over prioritize your home life if you define yourself by who you are at work, or you don't want to over prioritize work life if you define yourself by who you are when you're at home. So just an interesting thought that I thought I'd bring up because it sort of fits in.
That's a great way. That's a good food for thought, actually.
Because obviously, when you work in a high stress environment, in a high workload environment, right, you can be tempted to work constantly. Whereas, if you are defined by who you are at home, then it's more important. Your home life is more important. You got to say, look, man, I need to leave now. The next person's coming on. The shift is ending. I can't stay on. I got to go take over and go home. So, and I know a lot of people, a lot of surgeons who have sacrificed their work, right, for their family, and not become subspecialists, like super specialists, right, in certain areas, and because of the family life, which is very respectable. I think that you take your hat off to those guys. You tend to take your hat off less to the people who sacrifice their home life.
Yeah, right.
But those are the ones that you want to operate on you.
Because
they're very good.
That's brilliant. Yeah, for sure.
So you know what I mean? Like, give and take,
Yeah.
give and take,
Yeah, we need to balance the seesaw.
Yeah, give and take. Like each one has their advantages and disadvantages.
But I think the value in that is actually, like your friend you share, is actually asking yourself that question: who do you define yourself by? Because both either answer is the right answer, as long as it's the right one for you.
Yeah, that's it. So Joseph, obviously, at least when he was younger, defined himself by this coat. And when
I would say even before that, he defined himself by the favor that was bestowed on him and the love from his father.
Right.
Yeah, I think think of it this way. Let's flip it. Let's put the perspective from the brothers. Right. Yep. These are brothers who technically were. A lot of them came about because the wives were competing, and so they were trying to outdo each other. Right. Yes. So a lot of them came. So it was almost like, I wouldn't say Jacob was reluctant to make these kids, but wasn't his intended purpose. He wanted something specific, which was Rachel, and a son from Rachel. So for him, these kids were like little detours away from the thing he actually wanted. And so when Joseph came, you got to understand, like, the love that was given to Joseph from the other brother's perspective. Joseph must have been a little prick, like entitled, like know-it-all, must have lauded his love and prestige over them, whether he knew it or not. But so it's a very interesting dynamic in that family.
Yes. I absolutely agree.
Yeah. So in some ways, I understand. They're not evil where they were like malevolent evil. Like what they did was malevolent. But as people, I think I get where they're coming from. Like, you got this little piece of shit, like a thorn in your side, who's getting more portions, getting more love, and you're there doing in the field working. Joseph never had to work in the field.
That's a good point. I don't know whether that was because he was too young or not, but that's a fair point.
Yeah. So this is getting thrown in your face every day, and then now the guy has dreams that you're going to bow to him.
Yeah. Shit. That is pretty harsh. But
yeah.
One thing we could probably mention is, sometimes it's worthwhile to keep your mouth shut.
That is a fantastic observation in that story.
Yep,
I think
true, right?
Seriously, it is fantastic. And again, another Peterson idea is only be careful who you share good news with, or only share good news with people who care for you.
Very good. Very nice. I like that one. Very nice. It's hard to know though, because you'd hope that your brothers are the ones who actually do care about you.
Yeah. Well, I think in a sense, Joseph was in his own bubble.
Yeah, well, that's true. But then I think that's true of all young men. or young people in general. Of course, you live in your own bubble for a while. You're happy-go-lucky. The whole story of Joseph is him growing up.
Yeah.
And when you're not sure. When you're young, you say things because you're a kid and you say things like, "Oh, I had a dream about this and this." Like, yeah, sure, whatever. But yeah, it's been I think definitely you can see where the jealousy comes from. But in terms of defining himself by the favor that he got from his father, like I think that's very true. And then he lost it all, right? So this is part of Joseph's descent into hell, or descent into chaos, right? When what he loves most is his father's favor, which is the coat, stripped away from him, smeared in blood, and then he's sold into slavery. But what seems to also be prevalent in the story is that despite that, he still was not defined by that, because his moral integrity was never compromised. You see,
that is a very, very good point too.
Yeah. So maybe we're wrong about this. Maybe his
where we are.
Maybe he didn't really define himself that much. Maybe it was part of how he defined himself, right? Because obviously, when you die, when you have a death and rebirth, right? A part of you dies, not the whole part of you, right? So what was left behind after that aspect of his father was removed from him, right, is the bit that actually flourished into, the Redeemer.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like another parallel between Jesus. You can think of it this way: like when Jesus died, his human side had to die, so that what was left behind was his holy side, his God-like side, so that he became the Redeemer through his resurrection.
Yeah, it's like a transformation, like
exactly.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, these parallels are nuts. So that is a good point. Because why Joseph, if he was lofty and had all these ideals in favor, you should have been extremely embittered and resentful, because these brothers should have been bowing to him.
Exactly.
But he didn't. So that's very interesting.
He should have been angry at God.
Yeah.
Dude, like the idea of being angry at God, everyone gets angry at God. The word Israel means he who wrestles with God. And every Christian person, I think any genuine Christian person will tell you that there will be times where you really have to wrestle with God. It's not easy, and you think that you think things are going all right, and all of a sudden you hit a curveball and everything falls apart, and you're left with a dislocated hip. Because obviously Jacob was left with a dislocated hip. When you after you wrestle with God, so and you have a permanent limp from that. And hey, that happens. And we don't see that happening with Joseph at all. We don't see him wrestle with God at all. In fact, this is one of the interesting things. I haven't read the whole thing before coming into here, which I think if I have more time, before we read the whole chapter again. But he has very little prayer time at all in the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you noticed it. There's no mention of Joseph going to pray. There's no mention of Joseph actually conversing with God.
Yeah.
You see? Which I found very interesting. Right? But we'll get to that a bit later. We'll get to that a bit later on. Let's move on to the next topic in the meantime. So the next topic that we wanted to talk about was to be a diligent and productive worker. So what I wrote about this is hard work is self-explanatory. Let's look at excuses that we make to avoid work. Things like, I have a headache, I'm tired, the work is too hard, I don't get paid enough. Why would I work when I'm comfortable with Centrelink payments? It's all these things are excuses that we make. in order not to work harder. But
Yeah.
it's even people who are like people can do different things in life, but the people you respect most are the people who work the hardest. Like you can respect a baker, who wakes up early in the morning to bake and sells his product and goes home. Like that's respectable. You can respect a doctor. In your mind, a baker and a doctor, like there's no difference. They work just as hard. Wake up early, go to work, finish late sometimes. Then repeat the next day, right?
Yeah.
So from a work perspective, right, that's what you really appreciate. But you don't appreciate the guy who plays video games till 4 a.m. and then says, I'm too tired to go to work today, the next day. Or you don't respect the guy who says, I'm doing fine and settling. I don't need to get a job. I don't need to study. I don't need to do this. Why would I do that? Why would I? There's no respect. You can't respect somebody who says that. So, yeah.
Oh, I had to cry. Ellie's awake.
Sometimes just lets out a little squeal. She's okay.
That's good. Good to hear that.
It's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
I have my stethoscope next to the bed, so like at night now, right? Like just so I don't wake her up, because except I told you. I think I told you last time that you get worried. Like she breathes. Her breathing is so shallow at night. You can't hear her breathe, right? And she's not moving, and you're like, oh my god, is she okay? Is she alive still? So I put my stethoscope on. And I just have to listen to her chest, like I can tell her.
Just so you can have peace of mind and go back to sleep. Otherwise, be playing in your head.
Yeah, I'm like, SIDS is such a crazy thing, like sudden infant death syndrome. Like, how can you not know why children are dying?
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. Like, why aren't we putting more money into this?
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah,
I can't believe that's a thing.
Yeah, it's just like that. Anyway,
shit.
Yeah, so like literally, you can. I'll give you my stethoscope when you have a baby. I'll give you my stethoscope.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You can buy a cheap one.
Easy.
Buy a cheap one on eBay. It's like best thing ever.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna film my hairdryer technique, settle her down, put that on YouTube, and I guarantee that's gonna get like 1 million hits, because it settles her amazingly well.
A hairdryer technique.
Hairdryer. So all you do is you put a hairdryer on, right? You hold it far away so it's not too hot, and you just blow warm air on her face and her body, right? And she settles. And like when you're changing her, which is the most agitated time for a baby, when you're changing her nappy, right? She just settles down, calm as anything. It's amazing.
How did you figure that out?
Figure it out, bro. Come on, dude. This is me. This is me you're talking to.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually.
Okay, you do this. Do you have a hairdryer at home?
Yeah.
Just blow warm air in your face.
Yeah, I'll do that after this call.
And then you realize, like, that's it's really nice.
I think you figured out a new method of transcendental meditation, man.
The hairdryer technique. Yeah, and it's the sound as well. So what I've done now is I'm slowly weaning her off the hairdryer.
Yeah.
So I'll blow warm air a little bit and pull the hairdryer away, but keep the sound on. Keep it on, but put it away. And then maybe when she gets a bit more agitated, put a little bit more, and then sort of wean her off it a bit, so that she knows that there's no need to be agitated when you're changing her nappy.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, that's the theory. Anyway,
Pavlov over here.
Yeah. What's that?
Pavlov over
What's
here.
That?
Yeah, you know the Pavlov's dogs. How he trained dogs to salivate at the sound of the bell.
Oh yes. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something about the hard work? What do you think about that?
Yeah, like the crazy thing about that point is it's so self-explanatory, right? Like it's seriously like it's a no-brainer, and it's funny how we have to extend more energy to find excuses and rationalize why we're not working hard, because it's such a fundamental in life. Life itself struggles up. That's the point of life. you struggle up. It's resistance up. So the fact that we're making excuses why we're not doing that is crazy.
Have you heard the story of Sisyphus?
Oh yeah, Sisyphus is it's a terrifying one because there's a double meaning in that story.
Yeah. Tell me what you understand about it, and I'll tell you about my understanding about it.
Yeah, Sisyphus is like. So I think the philosophical understanding is the weight, the existential burden of life, and sometimes life can feel so pointless and difficult that it seems like it's like pushing a rock up a hill eternally. But at some stage, you can resent that, or you can say, "This is life," and you know what? I can actually be happy doing this.
That's the perspective that you should get. It's about a person being happy with doing something which they think is pointless.
Not technically my understanding, but this is the philosophical, particularly a guy called Albert Camus. When he came to this, so this is his understanding of. He's trying to explain it's like an atheist explanation of the point of life, where life is pointless and it's like Sisyphus pushing a rock. So we have to convince ourselves to be happy. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
I should have said, but
that
is one perspective I'm playing with. But what's your one?
Well, look, believe it or not, I actually wrote an essay when I was in university because we had to do a philosophy course when we did medicine because of I was Catholic university, so we did have to do one subject of philosophy, and
very nice.
It was the only high distinction I've ever gotten, and I wrote it about Sisyphus.
Very nice.
Right, and my perspective was that it is impossible to see meaning, or not impossible, it's hard to see meaning within a situation. You have to look outside of the situation to actually incorporate more meaning into it. So the story of Sisyphus was he pushes the boulder up to the top of the mountain and then he rolls back down, and the next day he has to keep doing it up again and again. And that's work. That's work, right? You wake up every day and you do the same thing over and over again, and it's work. But if you're too stuck in your head, right, and that's all you think about, then you don't see the bigger picture of what the work is actually doing. So let's say hypothetically here, right, that there's at the bottom of that mountain there's a town, right?
Yeah.
And let's say Sisyphus is rolling this boulder up the mountain and creates a trough for water to flow down in the springtime or whatever, or at night, when the boulder flows down, water flows down too and provides something for the town. Now Sisyphus may never know that.
Right.
Sisyphus may never know that because he's stuck seeing, all he sees is the boulder that he has to push up the mountain. So you'll never see anything outside of that narrative. You have to look more broadly.
The problem, that's not a problem, but the thing is, how do you not look outside of that without a religious ideology? Because that is such a big existential burden.
Look, I don't think it's too hard, right? To look at it, to take that perspective without a religion. I think the best way to look at it is with a religious perspective. But I think if all you need to do is try to think outside the box a little bit, right? Say, oh yeah, maybe that could be a reason why. But as soon as you start doing that, right? You start looking at more boxes. And start going outer and outer and outer until you eventually reach the metaphysical box and say, yeah, maybe there is a God that loves us, and maybe maybe he does have a plan for us.
So the problem is with that is, okay, how do you look at the house you're standing in?
Yeah, that's it. You have to accept the fact that somebody else can.
Yeah, that's a faith-based kind of philosophy, and I think because it's hard to define faith, I've actually been trying to for years, like actually narrow down what the heck is faith.
Yes.
like definitively, because I get it conceptually, but you know what I mean. Like, how do you articulate it?
Mm,
But I think this is a good way to kind of understand it. It's
mm.
like, yeah, it's a hard one. It's just fun. That's a cool topic that you had to write that philosophy
Yeah,
thing, because
yeah.
you
Like
have to
this,
contend.
the only HD I ever got in anything.
You have to contend with it because it's a big one.
Yeah, I'm a credit average student, man. Like, that's fine. I've gotten one distinction and one HD
Yeah.
in my entire life. My distinction was in physiology, and my HD was in philosophy. That was it.
Oh, dude.
Everything
And
else is great.
hey,
Don't tell people this.
I
Don't
think
tell them. He's make
no, but
degrees,
I
man.
think
He's make degrees.
that speaks volumes about where your interests lie. That HD, to be honest.
Does it? You think so?
I think so. If I'm being honest,
Maybe.
I think so. It speaks volumes
Maybe.
about where you're. And it's a I don't know. I'm detracting, but there's a
Maybe I
Carl
missed
Jung
it out.
thing where maybe you do, because there's a Carl Jung idea of your interests. Like when you find yourself being drawn to certain things, or it's almost like they're pulling you in that direction. And Carl Jung says it's like your future self guiding you along the way. Like your interests are it's like your future self telling you, hey, this is where you should go.
Interesting.
But let me read you what Albert Camus said about Sisyphus before we move on to
Okay,
this, the
sure.
next
Yeah,
one.
go for it.
Because he talks about Sisyphus being a metaphor for the existential burden of life. So he's resided to thinking, he's like, the only way that we can contend with this existential burden, which is unacceptable, because in his idea, the only way to get out of the situation is suicide, because it's so unacceptable to be. He says we have to imagine or lie to ourselves that Sisyphus is happy, and he says we have to come to terms with the fact that life is absurd, and you're going to be on the verge of despair. But what you can do is imagine Sisyphus happy and live life more intensely in the face of that. So that's the part that you can control. It's like, I'm going to push this rock up this boulder every day, but you know what? I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Yes, it's absurd, and yes, I can't see past it, but I'm going to do this intensely and with my full awareness. And you have to become deeply serious about the pleasures of ordinary life instead of trying to look at the loftier idealistic side. That's his take.
I have to say, I don't know if I understood that properly, but it sounds freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
I mean, what is harder, right? To delude yourself to being happy, right? With the little minuscule amount of understanding, right? Or just to accept that maybe, there's a possibility that there's a bigger box, right? With a greater understanding that you're not aware of, that maybe what I'm doing has a greater meaning to it.
But Carl, see, this is the problem with existentialism, right? It's that
Yes.
existentialism is the new scientism of today.
What do you mean?
Scientism. It's like people put their faith in, like science has all the answers. The new atheists, right? Science has all the answers. Science it could be the new morality or humanism. It's just existentialism in disguise. If that makes sense. Because ultimately the fundamentals are things are pointless, but we have to delude ourselves that they're not. That yes, we're doing things for the good of morality, is doing things for the good of humanity, but there's no moral axiom that substantiates that.
But it's not that hard to say that maybe there is a box that's bigger than my own. Maybe there is a view of the world that's greater. That is, I mean, that things that you don't know. Maybe there is a meaning beyond what I'm doing. I mean, yes, you are entering into a metaphysical realm, right? But you have to have a little bit. You have to.
Yeah.
It's actually
yeah.
It's even a little bit, right? Even a little bit, because no matter what, right? You have to have faith. If you're a scientist, right? You have to have faith in the fact that the people who did your experiments did it honestly.
Yeah.
That is the number one. That's the number one aspect of faith that you have as a scientist. You have to have faith that the people who've done those experiments that explain all your worldview have done them honestly. Because if they lied about it, right? Then your whole world falls apart.
Yeah.
You see? And mind you, there's a lot of people who lie about their experiments. There's a lot of people who lie about their experiments. And it's one thing to do imperfect experiments, right? Like to make mistakes and like, oh, I didn't factor this, or I didn't realize that needed to be factored in, or whatever, right? But a lot of people actually lie, actually omit data.
Yeah, there's a good example actually. Did you hear about this story where there was a group of I don't know, there's a group of scientists who were doing a peer review study, and the study was on dog rape culture.
No.
Right.
What's this? Yeah.
Okay. So they submitted it. Went through, peer reviewed, published, got a letter. This is fantastic. I didn't realize. You guys are doing groundbreaking work.
Yes. That's it. This is I know that's what you're talking about. Yeah. Go
amazing.
On. Keep going. Yeah, sorry.
Turns out these guys, what they were doing is it was a fake study. Like they did it. The real study of anything was to point out the flaws in the peer review process.
Yes.
and the left leaning bias of the not arts and humanities, but you know what I mean, but of like of the universities. Yeah. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Oh man, 100%. It was fantastic. Again, that was also by Jordan Pearson, I think, who did that interview. It was unbelievable. Such an interesting, topic. So,
but yeah, faith, man, it's interesting because I think the faith thing is, I really truly believe that, like the human, like I guess the human psyche is mapped onto a religious framework. Because you're right, even in science, you have to have faith. In so many parts of life, you have to exercise faith.
Yeah.
It's not just for the religious.
Exactly. You have to believe in something, even if you believe in other people, right? The underlying presupposition at that point in time is that you believe that other people are honest, especially if you're a scientist.
Yeah.
And mind you, like scientists in general are not that. I wouldn't be using scientists as moral examples, put it that way.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But Sam Harris may disagree, but there's nothing to suggest that any scientist would actually be more inclined to be moral than someone who's not a scientist.
That's true.
The opposite may be true. Right?
Yeah.
Scientists are there to push the boundaries. Maybe push the boundaries of morality too.
Yeah. We can say the same for religious people too. Even religious people, like even then, like like man, we've had stories. There's countless amounts of stories of like pastors or Christians exploiting others for money or using beliefs as a way for their own gain.
Yeah.
So even like you said, even having the faith of trusting someone is honest is huge.
Yes.
The fact that we can converse and take someone's word and then make decisions on the back of their word, decisions that affect us and our families, is unbelievable.
Yeah. This is a good segue actually to the next point, which is the trust in God to protect you. And that was the next point. Amidst all of the troubles. And my thought about this was that we have to trust God in the long game. So we have to not think short game, think long game, think, and I mean, even like if you look at investing, right? Like doing day trading is not something that Warren Buffett would recommend. It would be invest for the long run, put money in and wait and hold. Yeah. So that's what my thoughts were, and this is exactly what the whole Ziziba story was about. Like you have to think outside the box, think, longer. Like Joseph had no idea he was going to become governor of Egypt.
Yeah.
Right? We stopped talking about Joseph for a while, but like Joseph had no idea about that, right? But he had to have faith in God that he had to, work hard, and and that will get him where he wants. Where into a better place. Like maybe not where he wants to go because he didn't know where he was headed. But he had to have faith that he would go to a better place, wherever that place may be.
This is the crazy part because, like, the long game, you're right about the long game, having faith in the long game. Because imagine how painful it would have been for Joseph getting these dreams, God telling him in the dreams, your brothers are going to bow down to you, and then being sold into slavery, then rising up in Potiphar's house, and then going to jail. And then it's like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Like, why torture me like this?
Yep.
Why tell me I'm going to be something amazing, and then I have to go through all this tragedy?
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah, it's sort of like, it's, again, the idea of wrestling with God comes back, right? Like, when you're thrown a curveball and you need to die, you have to burn away the dead wood to rise up something different, something better.
Yeah. I think it's a very good story, archetypal for the story of just becoming a mature masculine man. I think it's this process of discipline, of like, the like the what do you call it? Like the blacksmith just literally pounding at this sword, getting all the impurities out, then heating it up, pounding at it again. It's like this repeated process of like becoming a mature masculine man that you have to take in the long game, because you'll break if you try to do it all now, and you can't. You give up. But it's like, that's your life. Yeah.
That's it, man. And that's the idea of practicing until you perfect your skill as a guitarist, your skill as a surgeon, whatever, Yeah. So look, that's a great point. Actually, we'll move on to the next point, because the next point is actually really interesting to talk about. There's only a couple more points, really.
Is your washing machine on again, by the way?
No, it's not. Why? Can you hear that noise again?
Okay. It's a little bit crackly when you speak, and then it goes away.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is it better?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Okay.
For now.
Hopefully it's not too bad. I'll check the audio after the recording. But then the next point is, that I wrote down was run from sin at all cost. Which is something really funny, right? The incident that comes to my mind was Joe Rogan's experience. I don't know if you ever heard this story by Joe Rogan, where he was super into gymming, right? When he was in school. And then one day, a girl that he really liked actually took him into the gym to fool around, because he had keys to the gym, because he was into gymming. And he was like, no, this isn't happening. This isn't happening here. You can't, there's no desecrating my temple, right?
Wow.
And he didn't say that, but like, that's essentially what went through his mind, sort of thing, it was in an interview with Jordan Peterson, actually, that he said it. And I was like, whoa, that's
you know what? He's not really, and that's crazy, because as a young man into gymming, like physiologically, you're full of testosterone. Like, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's insane that happened.
In high school, 100%, dude. Like,
because if I was in his shoes, I think I would have made a different choice.
Of course.
Like, if I'm being honest.
Of course.
So that's a religious decision, dude.
Even
the language he used was religious in that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if he used the exact phrase I used, but I think he used something very similar.
Yeah.
I was thinking he said, like, it may as well have been my church, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like sacred to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But like the idea of running from sin, right? Like, there's certain things that you will do and certain things that you won't do. And obviously sleeping with your boss's wife is something that you should not do. Sleeping with your boss's daughter, though, a different story.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking with it. But it's but obviously the wife thing is obviously, was it a big deal, right? Like, even if the wife like came onto him, and obviously it was a physical thing, right? And she came onto him to the point that she tore his coat again, right, and took his coat and screamed rape.
What is the symbology of the coat again? There's something there.
You're
The
right.
storyteller.
I just thought of that as well, but I'm not sure.
There's something there that is intentional. You know, that's not an accident twice.
That's a good point, eh? That's a good point. I
What
don't
do you think
know.
about? Yeah. The coat. Yeah, so it's
Maybe
crazy because it's funny. Sorry,
maybe
man.
it was the role that Joseph had in the household. So whereas his previous role was the son, loved by Israel, the later role was head of Potiphar's household. You know, the main servant, the head of, you know, in charge of the household. And she tore that from him.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, the idea of clothing is like akin to roles.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Especially
right.
in dreams, right? Like when you put on somebody else's shoes, even say, "Oh, you walk a mile in my shoes," right? You say that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a role that you're putting on.
It's almost as if at the end, it's like once Joseph becomes second, he's pretty much second in command of Egypt, right? At the end.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Second only to
it's
Pharaoh.
almost
Yeah.
it's almost like at the end you can look back and it's like almost like God saying to him, you're not going to be defined by the roles that other people give you, whether that's your father or your job. It's like there's a role that you're going to be defined that I'm going to give you. Yeah.
That's it, bro. That's it.
Funny
like
how when you
that.
talk it out, you can think, right? It's crazy.
Yeah. This is why these conversations are so good, right?
Yeah.
Then obviously you have the whole believe all women thing that comes into this as well, right? Like
Oh
clearly,
yeah.
clearly
Yes.
this is a problem that has permeated thousands of years, right?
Dude, these stories just ring true, man. It's crazy.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and to think, and you have people who are atheists saying you can't learn things from the Bible. It's unbloody believable.
Dude.
Right?
Dude.
Like,
What? Yeah.
But mind you, Joseph went to jail for this, right? So essentially, even in Egypt, right? Egypt believed all women.
Yeah.
Clearly, especially if it was a white woman compared to a Jewish woman, or man, sorry, a Jewish man. So you have a race difference thing there too.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or white being like Egyptian woman, and, you know, like Jewish man. Like,
here's the thing. I think also that story, it's interesting because I have a strong feeling Potiphar knew his wife was bullshitting.
Yeah. Because if he didn't, he would have killed Joseph.
That's right. So yeah,
Exactly.
So he's like, it's almost like he's like, shit, I need to save face because I can't, you know, I know my wife's a whore. I don't know. Like
hey, you know, it's probably not the first time she was at it.
Yeah,
It really is. It really is, right?
no, right. So this is crazy. Yeah, the believable woman thing's nuts because it's again, it's just like a tape on playback. It's like no one's thinking about what they're saying. It's the virtue sound of it that people like.
It is, right? It is.
Yeah.
It's like the Black Lives Matter, believe all women. Like,
it's
no one's going to dispute these things. You should believe women, right? But you should also look critically at everyone's perspective. You know, it goes both ways. Like, Black lives do matter, you know, but also so do other lives, right? Like, believe all women, sure, but we should believe men too, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's
there's so many divisions, unnecessary divisions.
Yeah, that's right. It's
and unspecific ones too. Unspecific, just general. Yeah.
Like, the other one is love, right?
Right.
Love is love.
Yeah,
that was the LGBT thing, right?
Yeah, it's like yes, okay.
Love is love, but like there's different types of love. You know, like which love are we talking about here? You know, are we talking about erotic love, or are we talking about parental love? Are they the same thing in your mind? Like if you look at the porn sites now, if you look at the porn sites now, so much incest, right? Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's weird.
So much, like, it's crazy. Like
there's a guy who was posting stuff about how people, especially the American Psychological Association, is really fucking getting weird right now. How they're viewing pedophiles now, where pedophile is like a mental disorder. They're having pictures of like a grown man shaking a kid's hand, and then they're showing like inside the guy's little boy. So they're trying to say that, oh, it's a mental disability. He doesn't see it. Like, he doesn't think he's like an old man. He thinks he's young. And I'm like, this is fucked up. Like, I don't know how.
It is indeed.
Justifying pedophiles is that's next level.
You think here's the thing about people on the left, right? Is that no matter how bad you think they are, it can always get worse.
Yeah.
And like I've been telling people this for ages. Like, it's like, you know, what's going to happen next, right? Is polygamy and polyamory, right? Which is already happening. Like, there's like a documentary about it on Netflix or somewhere, SBS or something, where you know, like polyamory and polygamy, like that's going to be next. And who's going to push it? It's really the Muslim people who are going to push it, right? Because according to the Quran, you're allowed to have 4 wives.
Or Mormons.
Right? Mormons. Okay, sorry, I didn't know about that, but
Mormons love the wives.
Oh, really? Okay.
Wives.
Okay. But anyway, so that's number one, multiple wives, right? And like, in all honesty, right? Here's the thing: which man wouldn't want more than one wife?
Right? Yeah. Okay. Look. Like, okay. Keep going.
From a sexual perspective, I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, sexual perspective.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a social perspective as well. That's hard. Trying to manage, you know, one woman is difficult.
But honestly, like, you can say, like, wait, now that you're married, the idea of multiple wives completely loses its novelty right now, right? Not from a moralistic state, but I'm talking from like a sexual point. Like, that's specifically like a sexual point. Does it lose its valence?
Because
the sexual side is just.
I don't know how to answer this question because my wife might. Let's do this.
So well, the way, fair enough. I don't want to put you in that.
Let me be honest. Let me be 100% honest. Yeah, I don't want to hide anything. All right. Look, the fantasy of all men is a threesome, right, with 2 women, right? So, what does that tell you? Excuse me. And I've been honest with Romy about this, right? Like, you know, it's a fantasy that men have, that you have 2 women. So, you know, do I still want it? Like, sometimes, you know, it crosses my mind, sure, right? Yeah. But like, in terms of how things are in my relationship at the moment, my relationship with Romy is amazing at the moment. Things are things are really going really well. Like, you think similarly, you connect similarly, you argue in a way that's enjoyable and stimulating, as opposed to, you know, that's tough and belittling. It's a very nice state position that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, wow.
And we're like, our arguments are there to help build each other as opposed to tear each other down.
Yeah.
And that's great. Like, we're in a really good position. And with Ali now, you know, like, everything is revolving around Ali. And like, you know, deep down in your heart that the unit of mother, father, child, right, is holy and sacred and should not be desacralized.
Yeah, that's it.
And any attempts at desacralizing that, it will only lead to chaos in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I like, as a father now, right? I can see that. Like, there's different things. Like, the way I interact with Ali, the way Romy interacts with Ali, very different. Anyway, how do we get into this topic? We're talking about running from sin.
Running from sin, right? Yeah. And then the Joe Rogan example.
Joe Rogan, that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, that's very interesting. It's sometimes how the seemingly unimportant pleasures of the flesh can somehow lead you down to hell, and it's sometimes a hell that you can't get out of.
Oh, dude, but that's always been the case. Even if you look at Hinduism, right? So I've read the Bhagavad Gita, right? The Bhagavad Gita is actually a very interesting book, which I don't agree with a lot of. But there's a few things that I find yeah, I could agree with. The Bhagavad Gita essentially takes three perspectives, right? The perspective of three paths, right? There's a path of enlightenment, there's a path of passion, and there's a path of destruction. And so if you don't know the story of the Bhagavad Gita, I'll just explain it to you, right? So essentially, you have a man who is the protagonist of the story, whose name is Arjuna, right? And then you have his right-hand man, right? Who is essentially God, right? Who is Krishna, right? And Krishna is telling Arjuna and convincing Arjuna that he needs to fight this war with his own people, his kinsmen, his family members, right? And he says basically that it is your karma to be a warrior, Arjuna, and therefore you must fight.
Yeah, wow.
And even if it's your own family members that are across facing you, you must fight them because it is your karma to fight them.
Wow.
So, and Arjuna, I believe, rightly so, is mentally against this. Right? It's like, no, I this is my friends, my family. Why would I want to fight them? Right? And Krishna is essentially whispering in his ear, saying that, or literally whispering in his ear, saying that no, it's your karma, it's who you are. You need to do this. It's important to do this. Right? And that is the path of enlightenment, according to Krishna. Right? That's you have to fulfill your karmic role. Whereas if he wanted to not fight these people, he would be actually following the path of passion.
Right.
You see, which is the more realistic, reactive thing to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like in this sort of matter with the war and things, the path of destruction will actually be not to fight the war at all. Like I don't know. It was weird. So, yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, that's very interesting. I need to read that.
It's just a weird book, man. Like I said, there was quite a few things I disagree with. There's a couple of things I agreed with as well. I thought that it was just a really strange thing to talk about. Why did we talk about this again? I'm starting to get lose track of things.
Yeah, running from sin, I think it was. I don't know how I got there.
How do we get to the Bhagavad Gita and Arjuna? Karma, your roles. How did we get there?
I don't remember. Somewhere we took a turn.
I think we're getting too tired to talk about this, so we should probably
probably
close up very soon. But look,
we can finalize.
Let's give one more point. I think this is the best point to close on, right? Is
sure.
you have to choose forgiveness over resentment. This is the answer.
It definitely ties up everything we talked about.
It does, right? Absolutely. Like the only way people can move forward is to forgive and not forget. Not forget. No one should ever forget, but to forgive. What it truly means to forgive is to not want ill for somebody else and to want good for them. Right? Like the book The Shack was so amazing. Have you read The Shack?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, you got to read it. It's such a great book. But it's by a guy by the name of W. Paul Young.
An old one?
It's an older book. I read it years ago.
I've heard about it. Must have been.
There's been a movie made about it as well. It has the guy from the Terminator, Sam Worthington, I think his name is. Terminator 4.
The one where his daughter dies or something?
Yeah, that's it. So,
I think I've heard about this. Yeah.
So I'll tell you the brief rundown of the book, right? So basically what happens is this guy, who used to be a Christian, right? His daughter gets kidnapped, raped, and killed. Okay? In a shack. Okay? Now there's a big manhunt to find the young daughter, right? And she's only a kid, right? And they end up finding her clothes and her bodily fluids and things in a shack.
Oh God!
And that's all. They couldn't find the body. Okay. And now this guy goes crazy, completely loses his wife over this. Like I think his wife gets a divorce or something like that. and he's like a shell of his former self. And 3 years later, on the anniversary of her death, right, he gets a letter in the mail with like just a few words, and it says, "Meet me at the shack, signed God."
Wow.
And he's like, "What the F is this? This is hectic, right? What the hell?" Anyway, he goes to the shack and he has an experience with God, which is all fictional, but it just sounds so right. Like you wish it was real, but it does give you, at least provide some insight into the nature of God, at least a little bit. At least this guy's perspective, which I really like.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm just checking on Ali.
Yeah, good idea. That's
You're asking a little bit, but I think she's okay.
Yeah. I've heard about that book. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic book, and it's all about forgiveness and how this guy comes to be able to forgive his wife's perpetrator, his daughter's perpetrator.
Reminds me of that story. There's a guy who shot up a church one time, like a black church, and the congregation welcomed him and his family for Sunday service, because they were said, look, yeah, it was like quite a touching kind of thing, and like something that I think everyone that saw that, like whatever you believe your values are, kind of went, this is something that shouldn't be possible. Yeah.
That's the only way to move forward, man. You can't move forward. Yeah. You cannot move forward unless you forgive. It is not possible. It's it's an Ouroboros.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Revenge is an Ouroboros, where there's a snake that devours its own tail, and it will continue to do so until nothing is left. It's the one-eyed, an eye for an eye leaves the kingdom blind. You see, so because it'll keep going. It'll just continuously. Excuse me for 1 second. Let's get a little guest. Hello. Hello. Hey, you woke me up. How's it going? Want to say hi to Uncle JB? Hello. Say hi. Hello.
Hello, Ellie.
Hello.
Oh, look at that. She's just waking up.
Yeah, she's just woken up. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
She's waving. Oh, she's waving at you.
Oh, she's waving.
A little bit. Oh, she's stretching. I think she's stretching. Yeah.
I wonder if she remembers my face from last time.
I don't know. But it's a bit hard on the screens. We're doing the whole screen thing with my parents as well. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Hey, hello. Okay. So anyway, so like I said, like I think like with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, with the whole what do you call it, the believe all woman thing as well, right? It has to end in forgiveness. And what you realize is that the media essentially are peddling unforgiveness to meet political ends.
Yeah, it's a weird. See, the weird thing is like, it's this weird thing of like, they're making it like a generational problem where, like, okay, it is a problem, but to put like a generational burden on like technically the blacks, and making people who haven't suffered through slavery to try and now make them, I don't know, they have to like now forgive all of slavery. You know what I mean? Like it's such a collective thing. Like it's like a collective burden on the individual that doesn't make sense. It's so stupid.
Sorry, I muted my mic because I was just trying to settle it down a little bit. I might see whether I can grab some food. Yeah, probably need to.
Sorry, man. We discussed a lot.
Around here. Yeah, it was great, right? I think, but I think like the whole idea of Joseph forgiving his brothers and like moving forward, like what more can you say, right? It's the perfect happy end.
Yeah.
And and that's real forgiveness, right? Aww. Say goodbye.
Go.
Okay.
That's bye, Ellie.
Goodbye. That's goodbye.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Take care.
Man.
Love you, man.
Love you too. See you later, bro. Bye.